First I'd like to give all praise unto Yahweh Shem Yahushai, and double honors unto the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and honors to you brothers out there in the highways and the byways teaching this word in all sincerity and in truth. Real quick, I just want to cover, this ongoing thing to do with human rights here in the UK. We already told you that, look, man, what they're gonna do is they're gonna continue on with this false flag terrorist agenda, man. These crises, they're gonna build up these crises to a point where they can declare a state of emergency and do away with human rights, man. And then from then on, they can use the tools of the state to attack and destroy and detain all the enemies of the New World Order, man, beginning with the Hebrew Israelites, the men of the Lord, because we're the main ones which are against, spiritually against the New World Order. Okay. So like we've been saying, they're using Islamic extremism as a Trojan horse to create that state of emergency that they want, man. All right, now this article came out here June the 7th. It says the UK would have to declare state of emergency to change human rights laws. All right, now if you've been watching our videos, we've been telling you that they've been saying for years now that the human rights has been getting in the way of the ability of the authorities to do their job in keeping the people safe. So they've always had human rights as a target, problem, reaction, solution. They create the problem to get a reaction, and the solution is for them, to remove the human rights. It says Theresa May's vowed to rip up human rights laws if necessary, which is going to be necessary. They're going to make sure that it's necessary with more terror attacks to tackle terror suspects. All right, so it's not even about people who have committed the acts of terrorism. It's now about the terror suspects. Prevention, pre-crime, would involve declaring a state of emergency. The European Court of Human Rights documents confirm. All right, because Britain is still under EU law. Okay, Damian Green has confirmed that changes to human rights laws would involve a derogation from the European Convention on Human Rights. The cabinet minister said France had taken similar action in the aftermath of the Paris attacks. So like we said, the blueprint for the removal of the rights of the people and the establishment of totalitarian police state is the same in all these countries. Okay, and it requires what? Chaos. It requires crisis. It says Labour's Keir Starmer, a former director of public prosecutions, has disputed that human rights laws prevented tackling terrorists or terror suspects. There is nothing in the Human Rights Act that gets in the way of effectively tackling terrorism. I can say that with this authority. I was director of public prosecutions for 5 years. I've worked very closely with the Security and Intelligence Service, and we've prosecuted very, very serious criminals. And the Human Rights Act did not get in the way of what we were doing, he told the BBC. There is a diversion. We've had 3 terrible attacks in 3 months. The problem is people just coming on the radar. Then the question of how they are risk assessed and what resource we're putting in. And the Prime Minister, because she was facing searing questions about that yesterday, about resources, she has now brought up the Human Rights Act as if that stands in the way of the current problems, he said. A European Court of Human Rights fact sheet stresses that the right to derogate can be invoked only in time of war or other public emergency threatening the life of the nation. All right. May has denied that her pledge to rip up human rights laws to bring in a tougher regime of restrictions on terror suspects and deportations contradicts her manifesto pledge to not withdraw from the European Convention of Human Rights in the next 5 years or repeal Human Rights Act before Brexit. Ministers claim that derogation involving the partial and temporary withdrawal from the European Human Rights Convention is consistent with the manifesto pledge. but the European Court of Human Rights document states that this can only be done by declaring a state of emergency, and derogations can only be made to the extent strictly required by the exigencies of the situation. So basically, the graver the situation, the graver the chaos they create, the more they can do in terms of doing away with the human rights. And they're going to create that situation, okay? Their fact sheet also points out that no derogation is allowed from certain convention rights, including the rule of no punishment without law, as well as bans on torture and inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment. The latter right may rule out deportation deals involving terror suspects with countries that may wish to strike to speed up the removal of Britain. The only other time that Britain has derogated from the European Convention on Human Rights in recent times was in the aftermath of 9/11, when the regime of indefinite detention without trial of international terror suspects in Belmarsh High Security Prison in London was introduced. Other derogations took place in relation to the use of emergency powers in Northern Ireland. It was eventually ruled unlawful in 2004 by lords on the grounds that 3 years after it was introduced, it was no longer a state of emergency threatening the life of the nation. So, I mean, look, man, what we're trying to tell you is this: regardless of what they say they will do or can't do, or eventually they're going to rip human rights completely out, and they are going to have, what does it say that you can't do? There's no such thing as can't do anything. They have the power to do whatever they want in an emergency, as long as the people agree that it's reasonable, which in great death and destruction, they're going to agree to any damn thing. All right, where is it? They said you can't, no punishment without law, as well as bans on torture and inhuman or degrading treatment and punishment. Well, after a few more grave terrorist attacks where children and men, women, and children, so-called innocent men, women, and children are being killed, you will see that this whole rhetoric will change, man. They will do whatever it takes. All right, they're already setting the ground. Once you start chipping away at the human rights, you can't say, "Oh, I could chip away at some and leave others." You're opening the door for them to be gone completely under the guise of an emergency. You know, and this is what's going to happen, and that's why the scripture says, the scripture tells you in Revelations 12:12. Let's get that real quick. That therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. These devils are going to institute mass crisis, terror, extremism, economic collapse, all these things. And in the midst of that, they're gonna get the police state and the power that they want to go after the enemies, man, to go to take out those who they deem to be a threat to their agenda, man, under the guise of extremism, of tackling extremism. Okay, let's have a look at this word wrath, then we close it up. All right, the word wrath there is what? Passion, angry, heat, anger, forthwith boiling up and soon subsiding again. Because when these terrorist attacks happen as well, they invoke the anger of the people, where the people are like, kill them all, so they're going to use these terrorist attacks, more and more of them, to justify what they're going to do to a particular group, and then ultimately it's going to extend to whoever the hell they feel like. Because like I said, none of these legislations mention Islamic terrorism or Islamic extremism. They mention extremism, which is widely defined. Okay, and like I said, eventually they're gonna include the Hebrew Israelites and other groups of people who they deem to be against the New World Order. They're gonna be included in that bracket. So hey, with that, I'm gonna say shalom.